When you hear the word evidence, what's the first thing you think of? Me personally, when I hear the word evidence, I think of maybe a crime scene, somebody coming in and seeing a glove on the ground with some blood on it. But what's the first thing you must do with evidence? Well, evidence has to be interpreted. You might see that the glove belongs to somebody, but that doesn't automatically mean that this person is a killer. Could be more evidence that needs to be gathered to come to this conclusion. Many times your first conclusion is not right. And one thing is for sure, if you look at some evidence and already have it made up in your mind what you think this evidence points to or what you want this evidence to point to, you're not going to do a good job at interpreting the evidence. The truth is, atheists and those who believe in evolution have zero evidence. They may tell you that they have an abundance of evidence, but what they really have is an interpretation of the evidence that everyone has. And if we look deeper at the evidence that is being interpreted by the atheists or the evolutionists, we can see that it fits much more neatly with what we've been told in the Bible with the creation model. You know, it's kind of like a puzzle. You have to force fit it when it comes to evolution. But when it comes to creation, it fits very neatly and perfectly, has much more explanatory power. You know, right here in Proverbs 3 and 5, we read, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." You know, the more science progresses, the more things change. There's always new interpretations that come out. Not even all the leading scientists agree on certain theories. There are secular scientists that don't believe in evolution. There's secular scientists that don't believe in the Big Bang. And they have their reasons. They see lots of flaws. And although those who have committed themselves and put their faith in evolution and put their faith in the Big Bang theory come with excuses, these excuses are nothing but mental inventions. So when people tell you that there's problems with these things, those problems are real. And they do not really know that these things are true, no matter how confident they may appear. So does it really matter if a Christian believes in evolution? Well, it does, because it really comes down to an authority issue. If the Bible isn't your authority and you're willing to compromise by man's opinion, this isn't going to stop right here in Genesis. You're going to always compromise whenever the majority tell you something. This is a battle between our authority and the majority. Just because the majority of people say something doesn't mean it's true. But just taking a look at some of the evidence that us as creationists should be able to point the atheists to, that the world around us and us as people scream out that we've been created. You know, the first piece of evidence is persons. You see, the evolutionists and the atheists believe that nothing at all really caused all the complexity that we see. They also believe that there's nothing really more than atoms. There's nothing really more than just matter, you know, dirt, flesh, you know, the sunshine, all these different things. They disregard the soul. But this goes against our experience. We have personhood. We know that it's us that is controlling our body. But who is this us that is controlling our body? You think to move your hand. Your hand doesn't move on its own. You think to eat food and do all these things that they don't happen on their own. So your body is not moving on its own accord. You are using your body. You are using your brain like a computer. So it's not very hard for us to imagine that there is another person like ourselves, a personality with morality and a rational thought that created the earth. This would match with our experience because we have the experience of having personhood. Although the atheists try to act like God is some far out and unbelievable thing, it's something that we can actually relate to a lot more than just nothing at all causing everything to come about and creating more persons like ourselves. It's much more logical to believe that there is another person that made us that is much more intelligent than us and is the reason for us. So remember, when I say person, I don't mean human, because God made humans in his image, and the image means the spirit of God, this personality, not something in a physical body. A lot of apologists don't like to use outer body experiences as evidence, but I do. Outer body experiences, although they are subjective experiences, I believe that they can be used as evidence, just as much as they use fossils as evidence for evolution, just as much as the atheist likes to use their own assertions of how they believe morality came about through evolution. These things, they don't really have any evidence for this. This is just things that they thought up. But we actually hear from many people about having outer body experiences. People can tell you about times where they have died, heart and their brain activity has stopped, and they were still able to see things. And there is evidence for these things being true. Whether people want to believe it or not is up to them. But this is evidence, and this does tie into what we've been told in the Bible. Paul tells us in 2 Corinthians 5, "For we know that if our earthly house, this tent, is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in heaven. For in this we groan earnestly, desiring to be clothed with our habitation, which is from heaven." You know, the Bible tells us over and over about how we will receive new glorified bodies. And in order to receive a new body, that means we have to receive this body. So who is this we? Well, it's not our body. Our body's not going to receive a new body. It is our soul, our spirit, that will be receiving this new body. You know, this is also something that we have further evidence for. You see, we are able to create things now that are eerily similar to the creation we live in. You know, we're able to make video games. When you make a video game, you type up code, and this is coded information that, when coded in a certain way, creates functional design. And this is what we see in the game. This is exactly what we have in our body. We have DNA, coded information that creates functional design. So the fact that we are creating things that are a lot like this creation, and we have minds, leads us to believe that, like the Bible said, we were created in the image of God, and we are following after him. We are thinking God's thoughts after him. You know, the evolutionists, they believe that there was never just two people. They believe that there was a huge population of people. It just doesn't make sense to me, like a large group of species of apes that had branched off and became human all at once, but it goes against our experience. We always see one person coming from two other people. That's what we always see. So that evidence that we see now, in the beginning, he made them male and female. And this is what we always see. It takes a lot of faith to believe that something else had went on in the past. You know, the reason why they say this is because of the large amount of diversity, but this is just them limiting God. This is just them not having an understanding of the power of God. God can very easily create somebody with enough diversity in their genome to make all the different colors, shades, body types, hair colors, eye colors that you see today. And we also see this with animals. Today, animals are always giving birth to their kind. You never see anything different. You can look into fossils and try to come with a different interpretation of what you see, but that's not true evidence, because what we're seeing today is the real evidence. That's the real science. Science is testable, observable, repeatable evidence. And the testable, observable, repeated evidence is that animals are giving birth to the exact same kind that they are today. Dogs make dogs, cats make cats, people make people. And lastly is morality. The fact that we all know there's a right or wrong. People say, well, we don't all agree on right or wrong. That doesn't get rid of the fact that we all know that there's a right or wrong. Whether or not we have seared our conscience, as the Bible talks about, or whether or not we have hardened our hearts to what is right or wrong, doesn't get rid of the fact that we still all know that there is a right or wrong. And this matches up with the Bible. Romans 2:14 through 15. For when Gentiles who do not have the law by nature do things in the law, these, although not having the law, are a law to themselves, who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or excusing them. You know, there's a right or wrong, and we all truly know it. And God has written this in our hearts as he created us. The interpretation with the most explanatory power is definitely the one that was given to us in the Bible. It's funny that this was here a long time ago, while the evolutionary interpretation was made to fit, so they can always have a new excuse because they made this thing up. But the thing about the Bible is it was here before us. It was here thousands of years ago, and it still fits. That gives it much more credibility. Who created this world? Well, it was Jesus Christ. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Then the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. and he died for our sins. There can't be anything more loving than a God so powerful that became a human, came down to our level, and died for us. If you believe this and confess it with your mouth, you will be saved. Something to think about.